Hello, everybody. This is Global Warming Skeptic, and we have a lot of work to do. The lengths that the media will go to lie, minimize this, about Donald Trump is unbelievable. First, you have Trump tearing down the veterans myth where Trump did not receive much, or he did not give money to the vets, he just kept it for himself. He demonstrated that to be a lie and exposed shameful media tactics from not only the Young Turks but everybody else. And let me just say something to the alternative media that I'm going to be tweeting to as well. You think that you're gonna stand on the sidelines and be exempt from this after being so biased for Bernie Sanders? You're not immune to this. You are part of the problem. Yes, you alternative media, quote unquote alternative, you're the problem. And I will go so far as to say that you are a bigger problem. Yes, the Young Turks, Sam, Kyle, you're a bigger problem than the mass media. And let me explain this. As corrupt as the mainstream media is, they at least have to pretend to be neutral in some aspects. Now, yes, I agree, they do a very poor job of portraying neutrality, but at least they have to pretend. With the alternative media, they don't even pretend. It is Bernie, 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 Bernie this, Bernie that. Oh, Bernie's so substantive, Bernie is this. And from that bias, you get all the ape-like Neanderthal attacks on Donald Trump. And this is one of them. The whole attack that Trump is not a billionaire, Trump is not a billionaire. By the way, I have a video proving that Trump is a billionaire, but we're going to prove more based on what he's saying. So, without further ado, let's get some context as to what Jinky Poo has to say.
Executives in a minute. They have it in the article as well. But let's get into the nitty-gritty here. The financial disclosure form lists assets worth at least $1.5 billion, but the range is...
Now just keep that in mind. Quote, at least 1.5 billion. It's important because you're going to hear something stupid right after this.
Included are far too wide for an observer to determine anything close to a precise figure. So let's break that down because there's two things in there. He's got assets that are in the range of $1.5 billion.
Oh, really? Is that what you just quoted? In the range of $1.5 billion? Let's go back and listen to this.
Assets worth at least $1.5 billion. The financial disclosure form lists assets worth at least $1.5 billion, but the ranges in those other Wall Street included are far too wide for an observer to determine anything close. He's got assets that are in the range of $1.5 billion.
Yep, exactly. See, that this is what happens. You have somebody who reads a quote, makes it meaningless, and we're going to see who's right here in a second too, because we got Trump's financial disclosure form right here. But before we do that, let's be fair to the Young Turks and let's give them some more context.
So they give these huge ranges. So it could be much lower than that. It could be $500,000, $750 million, or $500 million, I should say, right? All the way up to 1.5.
All the way up to 1.5. Is that what the quote said, Jinky Poo? Up to? Not at least? Let's listen more.
Second of all, that's nowhere near $10 billion. Now, how does he get to the rest? Well, a lot of it is, my brand name's worth a lot. It's worth billions. Who made that decision? I did.
And we're going to find out how this is bullshit too. Because, number one, the measuring of pure assets is meaningless. And we're going to see why here in a second after we look at this. But let's listen more.
Now, his brand name is worth something. That's true. That is a business reality, right? Because the main way that Donald Trump makes money is by selling his name. He doesn't build anything. People don't trust him to give him money because his business have gone bankrupt so many times. If he says, I'm building a building, the bankers go, good one, Donald, good one.
Yeah, you're going to see that in the financial disclosure too. Good one. All right.
You're not building a goddamn thing. We wouldn't give you a loan to do that, right? Now, he can build golf courses, which are relatively small. I'll explain that in a second as well. But no, what he does is, okay, you're a competent business person. You can actually build a building. Great. You build it, and I'll sell you my name, and you could call it Trump Tower, even though I don't own it. I didn't build it, and I'll charge you $20 million for that. So his brand name was worth something. By the way, it might be worth a lot less now that he's insulted half the world, right? And half the world's population says we would. Obviously, that is very ephemeral. So at most, in terms of his assets, he only has a $1.5 billion, giving him every benefit of the doubt. Now, there's some other things.
Okay, now again, go back to that quote that he read from, that he's basing this all off of. Quote, at least $1.5 billion. And like I said, the financial, we're going to get to exactly why that specific language is used. But one second.
Things that are also real, but overall, your assets are the most real. Okay, so now let's get into more details. Steve Stanganelli, who's a financial planner, quoted in this piece, says, and he appears to be reporting gross revenue. There's a huge difference between that and net income. What really matters is what you put in the bank. So when he comes out and says, I got all this money, I got my assets, and then on top of that, I have $500 million here. And then you go, okay, but what's your expenses? Oh, I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm counting that.
Okay, now here, Jinky Poo just does not know the difference between worth and net worth. Trump says he is, quote, worth $10 billion. Net worth is when you take your expenses into account as well as your gross income minus your expenses, and that's where you get net. See, okay, now take this in the context here. Let's put this in its proper framework. Here you have a political science major from Turkey comes to the United States to get educated and doesn't know the difference between net and total. I suspect those tax dollars that were used to pay for his education were wasted. Let's move on.
That is my money. Preposterous. No business person would ever actually say, I'm only going to count my revenue, I am not going to count my expenses, and I'm going to say that that's what I'm worth.
See, my point exactly.
It's comical. It's comical. This is all a house of cards. He doesn't have any of this money, okay? So it's not that he's insolvent, which although he keeps taking out debts, and the article also explained that as well. If you have so much money, why do you keep putting yourself further in debt? Now, there's some legitimate business reasons you might do that. Hey, I'm going to start a building, so I need some debt on the construction, but he doesn't do very much construction. And he's actually cash poor, as you'll see in a second, too. So the whole thing's a house of mirrors and a house of cards and all the different houses, other houses that are tricks and are about to collapse. Supposed billionaire Donald Trump ain't anywhere near 10 billion. I don't think he's near 1 billion. Okay, all right. So they go on to explain a big chunk of Trump's net worth figure comes from high valuations he bestows on his golf course properties. Trump values 9 of his golf properties at over $50 million for a total of at least $450 million. He values at least 4 at up to $25 million and a fifth up to $50 million. But golf course valuation experts say there is nothing in the report to support these lofty figures. Now, the Politico article goes on to explain that those somewhat.
Okay, I think we've heard enough. Now, we're just going to address a few claims here. Let me see what page we're left on. This is the scheduler. This is a big PDF. I'm trying to find out the page number so I can go back to it. So pardon me for my gross ineptitude. Let's see. Oh, duh. It's at the top. Okay. I'm not used to doing PDFs, but we're going to go up here and look. This is just a general summary of his assets right here. Let's look at some of the years. Because according to Jinky Poo, Trump doesn't have much going on these days. Let's see. 2012, 03, 2009, 98, 98. Just look at the 2000s. 04, 2000, 06, 06, 2012, 2015, 2013, two 2014s, 2008, 2005. You see most of these. Let's kind of scroll in. Let's make sure all you libtards watching this can get a really good look at these dates. Look at all these. All kinds of range of different years, but a lot of his activity right down here. Almost all these. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, this is all properties. These aren't copies. 300, 385, 433, 481, 515, and this is where his valuation starts. Now, see, this is why they say at least $1.5 billion. Here's 50 million, 50 million. Let's look at these. See, 40 Wall Street, over 50 million. 401 North Wabash Venture, whatever, over 50 million. These aren't golf courses. 5 to 25 million, another non-golf course. Let's see. Now, you're going to see a lot of these, but you know, there's as many of these as there is the others, so this list can get very weighty. Here's an over 50 million. There's an over 50 million. You know, and that could mean anything. That could mean 500 million. That could mean 200 million. Because he won't list over 50 million. Over 50 million. See, a lot of these are small, but he's got some huge stuff. There's an over 50 million, over 50 million, over 50. You know, and it's like I said, if you just take the worth of Trump Tower plus Trump World Tower, that's about 750 million by itself. Over 50 million, over 50 million, over 50 million, over 50 million, over 50 million. Oh, by the way, we're going to take a look at Donald Trump's open secrets too. We're going to see how liquid this guy is. And I guess they stopped doing value here for whatever reason. I didn't go this far, but you just might not have listed all the values. I don't know. But anyhow, here's my point. My point is I went up to page 25 and This is a worth. And this is in thousands, by the way, because it was easier to calculate that way. $1,625,415,000. And that's only counting, that's doing all the max values, and it's only counting the 50 million as it is. Oh, he does. Oh, he did. Yeah, he did stop doing the values. But here's my point. He is worth that amount. And now let's tackle this final claim. We're going to go to his open secrets. We're going to see, because this is a proof of how liquid he is. He spent 43 million of his own money. Now, think about this for a second. If he were only worth 150 to 250 million dollars, would he have this kind of money to finance for himself? Think about it. And he actually got some outside spending. But anyhow, as usual, the Young Turks caught with their pants down, telling lies. Oh, and by the way, that financial disclosure, you know, I only looked at the first 100 entries. But anyhow, thanks for listening. God bless.